So before we start writing memoirs, we need to make sure we understand exactly what it is as a genre. Everyone's lives, however ordinary, are filled with experiences that speak to universal human experience. And that's why they're interesting to other people, because of that universality. In its simplest definition, a memoir is a written account of an aspect, period, or series of events from one's life. It differs in that regard to an autobiography, which is rather an account of an entire life, your entire life. Memoir can be centered on certain people, such as parents, grandparents, siblings, colleagues, or it could be centered on themes like marriage, divorce, death, loss, and many others. A memoir is an attempt to express your perception of the truth as you remember it, where an autobiography, for example, sticks more to facts. Now, it's definitely important to remain as factual as possible in a memoir because it's important to talk truth. However, as a memoir is an account of memory and memory is understood to be faulty and inaccurate, a memoir may express your experiential truth, while at the same time not necessarily being completely factually accurate. Writing about a sequence of events over a particular period of time does not on its own make a memoir either. A memoir is ultimately a story that reveals or explores something about our humanity. It's an expression of what matters about those events, an expression of what matters most. So on that note of a memoir ultimately being a story, I also kind of want to define the difference between a story and something that isn't a story, right? If we take a look at this example, the king died and then the queen died. This is not a story, but rather a couple of facts, two facts, in fact, one being the king dying and the other being the queen. If we want to turn this into a story, we need to add an experience to it, right? The king died and then the queen died of grief. Now we have a story because adding in that extra detail of grief adds an experience, adds an emotion, adds something that is universal and understood by people. So memoir and flash memoir applies the elements of a story to your own life. And it ultimately follows the same structure as a short story or a narrative. There's a beginning and there's an end, right? And at the beginning of that story, there may be good fortune, there may be positives. As the story progresses and reaches its climax, there's a low point of ill fortune, and eventually the protagonist, or yourself in this case, comes back up and they reach some kind of positive conclusion about that negative experience. It's this element of story that differentiates memoir and flash memoir from straight reflection as well. A reflection is something you do immediately after an event, maybe not always immediately, but its primary focus is on the level of success or failure of that event, where a memoir combines the key elements of reflection with storytelling. This is why we call it creative nonfiction. It's still creative writing. But there should absolutely be truth at its core. It's the truth in the details, though, that becomes less important. Again, because it's based on a moment of significance to you. But the accuracy of the details becomes far less important than the ultimate theme that you're writing about. I hope that this has been helpful to you.